I'm Alex Newman, and this is Behind the Deep State with Alex Newman. Today I want to talk about something really important. And some of you have probably seen some of this stuff on the surface. You know, maybe you live in the European Union, or maybe your government is trying to impose a North American free trade agreement on you. But one of the key strategies when we're talking about the deep state and their pursuit of their little New World Order is to use these regional orders on the road to the New World Order. They know that people are not just going to say, oh, okay, we submit to a world government. And so what they've been doing for generations now is creating these regional governments all over the world under various different pretexts. You have, for example, NATO with a military pretext. Free trade has been really one of the key ones. If you look at, for example, the European Union, which is the key model in terms of this regional government strategy, it really began with trade agreements, right? They started off by building up a free trade area. They said, oh, it's just about trade. We just want free trade with everybody. And then, of course, it moved to political integration and monetary integration and all the rest of it, to now where they're basically openly calling it a federal superstate. Obviously, the EU is only the premier example, but it's only one of many. You have the African Union, of course, is now very highly developed in Africa. Nobody ever asked the Africans if they wanted this, but they have an African Union military, an African parliament, an African executive branch. They're getting rid of the borders. They're going to create an African passport. They're talking about creating a single African currency like they have in Europe. And, who better than mass-murdering Marxist dictator, the genocidal Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, to put in charge of the African Union? So he got to run the African Union Commission for a time, which is kind of like the executive and the legislative branch combined into one. This is just scratching the surface. In South America, you have the Union of South American States, really dominated by socialists and communists. Over in the Russia area, the area of the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, you have what Putin calls his Eurasian Union. I think they've brought in 6 or 7 governments now under this Eurasian Union umbrella. And Putin himself has talked about merging it with the European Union eventually. The Arabs, they've got the Gulf Cooperation Council, paving the way toward a broader Middle Eastern Union that the Council on Foreign Relations has been promoting for a long time. In the Americas, we have the Organization of American States, which has got its own little kangaroo courts and human rights mechanisms, bureaucracies. In Southeast Asia, you have the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. You have the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement. You have all these different regional organizations that are very slowly becoming, or not even slowly anymore, but becoming governing bodies with real coercive powers, and law enforcement agencies and militaries and things like this. Even in North America, if you're an American, if you live in the United States, we are not immune from this. They created NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, very similar to the European Free Trade Agreement, which was the foundation of the European Union. Henry Kissinger, globalist extraordinaire, one of the key architects of this New World Order, actually described NAFTA as the most creative step toward a New World Order taken by any group of countries since the end of the Cold War. And he did that in a major newspaper. So this is, really highly significant. NAFTA really is serving as the foundation of one of these regional governments. They've got these kangaroo courts. They call them, North American tribunals that purport to have these authorities to arbitrate disputes. They purport to have the power to override our state governments, our federal government, our state and our federal courts, all under the guise of enforcing NAFTA. This strategy has been at work for a long time, and the globalists have been talking about it. The deep state figures have been talking about this for a very long time. Back in 1995, former National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski, who worked for everybody's favorite president, Jimmy Carter, he was speaking at former Soviet dictator Mikhail Gorbachev's State of the World Forum, and he said, "We cannot leap into world government in one quick step. In brief, the precondition for eventual globalization, genuine globalization, is progressive regionalization, because thereby we move toward larger, more stable, more cooperative units." And so they're laying out the plan. You won't read about this on the front page of the New York Times or the front page of the Washington Post, but these people are out there talking about this in the open. In the 1960s, we had a report funded by the State Department called "A World Effectively Controlled by the United Nations." This was put out by globalist, deep state operative from the Council on Foreign Relations, Lincoln Bloomfield. And one of the many things, there was a lot of interesting stuff in this report, just fascinating if you want to understand the deep state strategy. But he wrote that ever larger units will evolve through customs unions, confederation, regionalism, until ultimately the larger units coalesce under a global umbrella. So basically a global government. Henry Kissinger made the exact same argument in a recent book called World Order. He said that the contemporary quest for a world order will involve the creation of regional orders and then relating these regional orders to one another. So this is their plan, right? The UN itself has spoken on this. They actually created a Commission on Global Governance, and no, I'm not kidding, it was really called the Commission on Global Governance. And they said that regional cooperation and integration, that's of course little terms for their agenda, should be seen as an important and integral part of a balanced system of global governance. And when they say global governance, of course they mean global government. So this is a very, very dangerous assault on national sovereignty. And again, they realized that if they just came out of the closet and said, hey guys, we're going to have a global government, give up your ability to govern yourselves, give up your traditions, give up your cultures, give up your laws, and submit to this global authority, people would laugh, right? And there's still hundreds of millions of guns in circulation. It just wouldn't work. And so they're building up these regional governments first to break down all resistance, to subvert sovereignty from within. And then from there, they plan on marching onwards toward a truly global system. And if you look at these regional organizations, most of them actually state openly in their charters that they're organized under the United Nations. So take NATO, for example, take the European Union, for example. All of these entities are organized under the UN system. They all pay homage to the UN Charter, which is kind of like the UN's Constitution. And of course, they're all moving us in the direction of smashing the nation state, even smashing national identities, right? It's why they're pushing this mass migration. It's why the European Union is insisting on taking control of all legislative powers and even national budgets, right? Things that if the federal government said to the states would balk here in the United States. So anyways, this is part of how the deep state works. You can learn more about it from this special report we did on the deep state in action. Also, you can click on a link below that we published in the New American Magazine. It's about how these regional orders are being used by the deep state to create a new world order, a global government system. So make sure you like this video, share, subscribe, comment, tell us what you think, tell us what you want us to cover next, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.